Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Precision Golf Live Friday edition. Joined by Simon as usual. Been a while for
Friday
me.
the 13th.
Is that right? It's not, is it? Oh my goodness me.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to be
This
interesting.
is going to go brilliantly, isn't it?
It's been a little while for me since I've been on the show. So, and there's been a lot of product that's come out, hasn't there?
Yeah, we're
Crikey.
just right in the middle of product launches, and so James and I are off to the trade show a week on Sunday out in Florida. So this is a prime time for product launches. They always used to launch at the show, and they've come out a little bit sooner now. But we're in the midst of lots of big boxes coming in, and some that we can put out here and some that we can't.
And is the show still in the same venue up International Drive?
Yeah,
in the
same
big arena.
massive convention hall.
Yeah.
So we've got Accra, when the shaft manufacturers do a golf day on the Monday, which we do the first half, which is about all the new product and don't play the afternoon. So they do like a comp on the course in the afternoon. And then Tuesday's demo day out at Orange County National. That's about if the bus driver goes the correct route and doesn't get lost, it's about a half an hour bus ride out. And that's got a sort of 320 yard diameter practice ground that you go around about 3/4 of it with product. Really? So that's a really key day. We'll do some broadcasting from then. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are in the convention hall. So we were actually doing Wednesday and Thursday morning and then fly back Thursday afternoon.
Brilliant. So what's coming up on the show today? We're going to talk about all of the product that's come out, hit some of them, get some thoughts, share a bit of comparisons maybe.
Yeah, if we can, yeah.
And talk about what else we've been doing at Precision Golf. And if you've obviously got any questions, James is on the drums.
Yeah.
He'll be throwing them our way. And if there's any heckling, keep that to yourself. No, bring it on.
We can do all a bit of heckling. Yeah.
And so what's been the clubs that have come out so far? Or let's talk about drivers first, because that's what everyone is sort of excited about.
Literally just had, so there's some product where the embargoes are just lifted, so the media embargoes. So we've had the TaylorMade, the Stealth 2, or most of the Stealth 2 product come in, the Ping 430, G430 product come in. Callaway, Srixon, Cobra have all lifted the embargoes, but their products are due to come in. So Callaway should be.
So you can talk about it, but
I can talk about
can't
it, but
see it.
we haven't got it yet. Right, so Callaway's product should be here back in next week, and then Cobra, Srixon are going to be the very end of the month. Right. So, but I mean, they're all. I think the key thing this year is none of them are claiming that this is going to be a massive step change over last year. So they're not necessarily. And TaylorMade are really outwardly saying we're not trying to say that someone who bought Stealth last year should buy Stealth 2. It's a very small progression. There are progressions, but they're small progressions. This is aimed at someone who's got, like me, an M4 and M5, that kind of 3 or 4 generation back. That's where you're going to see a tangible move forward. And they're kind of all moving towards that now. They've stopped the big claims now.
Right, and so the step change, or the small step change, is more about off-centered strikes.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, middle of the face has been limited since 2003. So they can't physically make the middle of the face any faster and haven't been able to for 20 years now. So it's getting average speed better across the face.
And so when you talk about the change in the face, they can't make them faster because they can't make the thickness of the material any thinner to create a trampoline?
They could do. They're just within the rules of golf, they're not allowed to.
That's what I mean.
Sorry, So within the rules of the game, back then there was some testing of some massive club heads with very thin, very big faces that produced a huge trampoline effect.
The Callaway ERC, that was.
Yeah, and even beyond that,
really?
They had the ones that got deemed illegal. They were testing beyond those points. They were putting maybe 30 yards on back then. And it was sort of at that point where the rules bodies looked at it and went, no, this is ridiculous. Right. And now, granted, back then they would have gone everywhere as well, but the speed step was there. So they put a limit on it for the, used to be calling it a coefficient of restitution, the amount of responsiveness of the face to project extra ball speed. Right. So they limited that back then, so the middle can't get any faster. Now, granted, the middle's the flexiest bit, so that's going to produce the biggest change. So now, where that middle's limited, they're just improving it across the face now. Right. So there isn't the same restriction on fairwaywards because of the loft.
Right, of course.
And the face being that much smaller, they can't get the amount of flexion, or they probably can now actually, can't get that amount of flexion. And they can't get the extreme flexion they could on the bigger faces. So it's not an issue for anything above driver.
Have we got anything feasible to touch?
Let me go. I'll go and grab a couple of heads and bring them in.
Brilliant, brilliant. And Your driver, Simon, that you're with at the moment is which one? You got
It's the
TaylorMade
M4, TaylorMade M4.
Yeah.
So I've had that
what generation would that have been?
I have to think heavily about this one. That is
5 years ago.
Oh, at least 7,
Right.
6, 7 years back, I think.
So you're
5, 6 years back.
So you're going to see quite a decent change in
Well, I think
dispersion.
it's more. It's the dispersion on the off-centre stuff. So it's the drop-off in performance off-centre.
Yeah.
So out the middle, I might see a couple of miles an hour, 2 or 3 miles an hour now,
Right.
which part of that goes down to structural improvements. So a stiffer frame.
Right.
So that can force the energy back into the face to get the energy going back into the ball more.
Right.
So very, very slight gains from that. But it's more if I toe one, it won't knuckle quite so much, which is my want. So,
I mean, I've been looking for a stiffer frame for a long while now. Anyway, that's another story. Dave,
What about gym work?
Dave Hurley, he's asked, lofts are getting crazy. How far it is? Lofts are getting crazy. How far is too far carry distance for 7.9? So what he's saying is lofts have gone low. How far is too far for a 7.9?
Well, there isn't
really to club speed.
Yeah, and there isn't really an answer for that one. It's more how low is too low a spin. So, for Matt who works here, like too far on a 7-iron is 250 yards. It's one of those. There is an optimum distance, but there's not a kind of everyone should hit it X, Y, Z. It's really, so what's changed is that they've got more weight in the sole of the club. They've taken loft down because the weight low launches it higher. The problem is it takes spin off as well. So the knock-on effect is it wins a launch monitor test because a 7-iron at a 5-iron loft, it's going to go like a 5-iron but launch like a 6-iron. Yeah. So, but the problem has been that you then get massive gaps at the bottom and then scrunched up distances at the top end of the set. Yeah. So it's really about getting a balance of the spin rate as you go through the set. And we are seeing TaylorMade, Mizuno, Ping creating heads that launch it higher. So Ping with the G430 iron has got sort of 7 sections in the back of the face that flex and allow it to move weight around but generate a bit more launch relative to loft. Yeah. Mizuno have got the 923 hot metal high launch, and TaylorMade with their HD sort of high draw series have gone quite an interesting shape, but getting that weight low, getting the flight up. They're all starting to admit that it's gone too far without really saying it. So they're all rowing back a little bit. Yeah,
it's interesting. We had Colin Montgomery down. Sorry, I just dropped a name there, but Colin comes down quite a lot and obviously keen on his equipment. And we were having a nice conversation amongst a few of us about how, as players, we all want to put energy into the floor and still see the ball launch. Yeah. Equipment for the better player, that's kind of gone against that. It's harder to make that happen, and I think that it sounds like that evolution has the needle's started to be pulled back a little bit. I mean, ultimately, it's guys have got invariably heel strike, open face, and not enough down, aren't they? And so the equipment has got to oppose that, got to drag lofts down, got to make spin less, and got to help them square it.
It's gone too far for the high handicap as well.
Because
because
you're talking about
you
the
can't fight it.
Yeah, but then that's the scrunch up at the top end of the bag, right?
Yeah.
That's why nobody's using 4-irons and 5-irons because they can't get the thing in the air.
Well, the 4-irons now are 2-iron.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And so there is this thing of the ball, the club goes further, but it's just you can disregard the number on the bottom. And so for the lower handicap player, it's about the control coming into the green, distance gaps, being able to, as you say, see that launch angle. For your average 18-20 handicap golfer, it's actually about getting some carry distance on it. Actually getting the ball airborne. You just in golf you have a number of tools to hit different distances. So you just take a 5-iron instead of a 6-iron, or as much as we don't like it, but a 7-iron rather than 8-iron. But it has got to the point where clubs are so strong. That's why you've got they've stopped putting pitch wedge, gap wedge on the sole. They've gone like Titleist to P for pitch wedge and W1, W2, or they're just putting a loft on the bottom. Yeah, because the number one's almost meaningless now. You're fitting to flight rather than what the number says.
Yeah. And I think that might even be where it ends up, right? Numbers on like loft numbers. I mean, if you think about it, that would actually mean more to people, wouldn't it? I mean, once they made that progression, because everyone knows, I've got to use 4 hybrid or 3 hybrid or whatever. They know the lofts of them. I think that might be a good place to go. So we've got a few more questions come in. Tom Vaughan sent a message via your website as to when products will be arriving to fit a lefty. Will everything be in by end of Feb?
By end of Feb, if they're not, then they've got problems in terms of getting product out. They are, inevitably, left-handers are always, they'll prioritise all the right-hand equipment, and what tends to happen is within the fitting packs you get, like we've got a Stealth left-hand driver head, a Ping Max driver head. So what we have to do is we have to order extra in, but they then come in when the launch dates are. So they come in when standard product launches come in. So I would say, yeah, so TaylorMade, we're likely to have them around 15th, 16th of Feb. Callaway probably similar around the 20th, because their launch of product, we'll get the demo product hopefully next week, but their product launch, they've already shifted back a couple of weeks. So that's second half of Feb. Let's see, Ping. So I think realistically, yeah, mid-Feb, we should start to have the rest of our left-hand product come in. So we'll have a small smattering of it, but yeah, the majority will be mid-Feb. So yeah, back end of February, we should be comfortable with all of that.
Super. Ant Lockyer, welcome along as usual, Ant. The manufacturers are trying to get similar spin and speed across the face, but why does the heel strike still go right?
So,
good question,
our
Ant.
friend gearing. So
Good question.
I shall grab a prop. So the reason you get different shot shapes from different bits of the face is because as the club head comes into the ball at impact, basically there's a momentary stop. So the ball is getting in the way of the head and absorbing some of that energy. So what happens is, if you get an absolutely centered strike, as it comes through, everything stays in place, everything comes off uniformly, and you get an efficient shot. If you catch low on the head, as it strikes, the head does that. So the ball rolls up the face, and that creates more backspin. Similarly, if you catch the heel, at impact, the club head, the heel part slows as the ball makes contact, and whilst the face closes a bit, the ball rolls in, and most often so low on the heel, in and up. So that's where you get that gearing and the left-to-right spin, and opposite on the toe, the ball rolls into the face, gears right to left. So that's where the oddity, what might appear in terms of heel strike, why does it go the opposite way? If the face is closing, why doesn't it go left? It's because of that motion rolls the ball in, creates the side spin, and therefore hits the shot shape.
So just to follow on from that, and so Simon has talked about the gearing. I think the reason why heel is still more of a high impact right shot than toe is because what caused the heel strike, and if I just grab a club, heel strike comes from predominantly the handle is moved away from you, and if you've moved the club away from you, you've foreshortened the gap between the start point and the end point, the start point being your setup and the end point being strike. You've foreshortened that distance, and if you've moved the handle closer to the golf ball and you've whacked it out the heel, you've not only got the gearing, but you've also got an open face with that as well. So you've got a double whammy. Whereas the toe is not quite the same. You know, if you're hitting it out the toe, the club handle is getting slightly closer to you, and the toe with a slightly closing club face and the handle being closer to you tends to shut the face down, and so the toe is not quite as exaggerated. And as we know, most golfers are biased on the way of open face to closed face, and on that, you know, we all know Dustin Johnson's got this strong face, but I'm going to go a bit more Dustin Johnson, and then I'm going to go another 20, 30, 40%. So that face, you'd have never seen a golfer in the planet making a golf swing like that. But if I bring that down to strike and I now push the handle away, I've still been able to make that face look right. So the handle rise and push forwards is a hugely powerful move to make the face open. And I think that's why the heel strike is still so powerful in making the ball go right. So hopefully that answers.
Lesson in physics as well.
Well, who knew? Yeah. Who knew? So Andrew Lloyd.
There might be one brain cell between the two of us.
Are manufacturers making hybrids that have the same loft between forwards, hybrids up to 5-iron?
Just make sure I understand the question correctly. I was going to say, making hybrids that have the same loft between forwards, hybrids up to 5. So in terms of loft, I'm going to interpret it as loft progression. So not every manufacturer makes a hybrid with a loft of a forward, so like a 16.5, 17 degree. Or they might do in a model rather than all their models. So the amount of people that require a loft that low is pretty small. So it's not that cost efficient for them to make one that low. But what we're tending to see is more of them are making the higher lofts. So like a 6-iron loft up at pushing 30 degrees, more and more of them are going to that end. Main reason is, again, flighting it up. A fairway wood at the same loft will flight it higher. So therefore more golfers need help launching it. So a 5-wood versus a 19-degree hybrid, the 5-wood's going to get higher. So I think if I've interpreted that question right, that they're all doing lofts from 18, 19 degrees up to, say, certainly 24, probably 27 degrees, maybe higher in certain models. But there are a limited amount that are down that 16, 17 degree.
Yeah, Andrew goes on to say he's not very good with a 5-iron, so could I get a hybrid instead?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, to put it into context, a lot of 5-irons are 24 degrees, which is an old 4-iron. That's probably why you're not very good with a 5-iron. So every single brand will have a 19, 22, 25, 28 degree. So a 23, 24, 25 degree hybrid, every single brand. Yeah.
I mean, we've got to remember, old money, it was 21 degrees with a 3-iron.
That's a threat. Yeah.
I mean, you see 24, I mean, you're getting very close to a 3-iron golf club.
Well, some of them are 21 with a 5-iron, 21 and a half.
Right,
I mean, it's, and so going back to the point you were making earlier, that is the problem. It's that, a set of clubs now that's a 5-iron to pitch wedge and gap wedge. Now, granted, they spread the lofts a bit at the bottom to try to mitigate some of that, but you're looking at almost 3-iron to 9-iron. In terms of lofts. And how many players hated 3-irons years back?
Absolutely.
A lot, because there was no loft on them. No. And they're just hard to use. Yeah.
Obviously, all the questions are coming through on the phone, so anything that you would like to ask Simon and I, feel free to do so. So we're going to have a little look at these new exciting woods. So we've got the new Ping here, and we've got the Stealth. Are we able to hit these?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I mean, the big thing I think we're seeing across the board this year, weight saving in the heads is the thing they're all trying to do. So in the Max and the SFT in the 430, they haven't got the composite crown that they have in the LST. However, the LST was the heaviest head last year. So what they're all doing, I'll bring these up to the camera here. So if I can get it visually, you might be able to see the weave on the crown there, possibly, if I can get the angles right. So on the LST head, there's a carbon bit that wraps into the toe, across the top, and into the heel there. And that's purely down to saving weight. Similarly with TaylorMade, as they've done before, you've got the carbon face, which saved, I want to say it was sort of like 24 grams over the titanium face. That's a lot, isn't it? Which is a lot. Light composite crown, and then a carbon in the sole as well. Callaway with the Paradigm, they've got the forged composite in the sole and a light composite crown. So they're all trying to save as much weight out of the face and the central sections, whilst trying to stiffen up the frame as much as possible. That's what every single manufacturer is trying to do. And all this is in aid of is being able to move a few extra grams within the head to optimize CG position, optimize weight position, depending on the model that they're using. To get as much forgiveness and spin efficiency as possible. So they're not claiming massively high ball speeds because they can't. I mean, that face last year gained the 1 mile an hour, which they were thrilled with. Because previous models had only been on average sort of 0.3, 0.4, and they suddenly went 70% more ball speed gain across the face by doing it. So you might see a fraction of ball speed gain, but what I'm expecting to see this year, and all brands look like they're doing a pretty good job of it, is a cross-face performance.
Yeah. So Ant's come in with any idea why manufacturers only make the low spin ones look classic? Stealth and Paradigm both have added stuff on the standard model. Seems like only Titleist are making a clean look.
I mean, so there are two elements to that. There's a clean look and there's a traditional shape. Yeah. So the traditional shape bit is that low spin doesn't have loads of weight at the back. So the more weight you put at the back, at impact, that weight keeps going forward, works it underneath, flights it more. So for low spin, you need weight near the face and forward, which is why I'll take the two Stealths. The Plus, the low spin, has the weight at the front, and the other two don't. So what that also means is you're going to, within that, where they're dragging weight forwards, you're going to see a slightly shorter frame. So the traditional look and the low spin heads actually functionally suit one another. They are as they are because from a design and a geometry point of view, it just works. The bit that I would say, what Ant is mentioning, is that the Plus series here, it has the red frame there, but you can't see it from the top. So they've both got it, but on the other models you can see it framed here. And which the only difference is, you see they've gone around the top lip of it there, and they haven't on this one. This is purely just going to be a visual thing. They're trying to show what they've done, show that framing. Now, whether on this one, by putting that line around the back, this is purely me kind of guessing, is whether they're trying to make it look a little bit more compact. It's where with the 430s, they've got, similarly speaking, little visuals in here. It forces the eye to look a little bit more towards the centre. It brings in the frame line very slightly. That's about the only thing I can think of. It's a design element to make it look as traditional as possible. Titleist that's their brand. I mean, they're such an old school traditional brand. It's just a clean, simple black head. But the other brands, they want to focus on the visuals. They want to make sure that you can see which head it is from a distance, which is why the face is red on the Stealth when any Pro tees up. It's all about that.
And I think we've almost, it sounds like with drivers, we've reached that point of, you want to get that driver, that hits it way further than that one. We're probably still in that era of, if someone's got a 10-year-old driver, there might be that opportunity, only might be, but it's like people really got to think along the optimization route, haven't they? I mean, all of the equipment is lovely in isolation, but is it optimized for you? And that's ultimately what we're talking about.
And the more they spread that weight around, ironically, whilst technically they're better across the face, and the from a CAD design point of view, they're more efficient. The further that weight is from the face, the more sensitive to little nuances in delivery they are, because the more separation, the more that weight relative to strike point and flight moves around. So they have become more specific to player, whilst in theory they should be better for everyone. It's become easier to say, right, that is definitely not a head for you because. Sometimes it needs you to hit a couple to see trends and patterns, and you can say, okay, that's why. But we're seeing it with irons as well. The more tungsten there is in the sole, some players that just doesn't suit. And a strike point or delivery pattern, you can see the face opening more or the ball speed tailing off a little bit more, when technically it shouldn't. Some players are better with a blade than a head with a load of tungsten.
Interesting stuff. So, well, let's get a club shaft in there. Should we give a couple of them a what?
Get something that's relatively similar for the two of us.
Yes. It's
You're on the Demand TB, aren't you?
I am.
But you're on the heavier one than I can manage.
Well,
I'll go kindly. I'll get that one. We'll go with Stu's setup.
Well, I've been working out.
I'm trying to start. I've done a little bit here.
Sorry. Let me zoom in.
Sorry, I've just about got rid of my Christmas pudding.
I would have worn a tighter shirt had I known. But
where do you want to start?
Well, let's go with the ping.
Ping, yep.
Let's go with the ping. I really like the decals on the ping. I think that's.
No, you're a 10.5 man. I'll get a 10.5.
Yeah, it's a good looking head. It's a good looking head. I'm much more in favour of black heads than anything else. I mean, there's been some funky colours along the
it's been interesting because there've been, when there were the funky colours around, like TaylorMade, obviously the white heads. There were a lot of people that go, I don't like the white heads. But actually, there are a lot of players who like that differentiation between the top line and the face, and from an aiming point of view. And so it's one of those things where don't wish it away until there were so many people who said, I find it really hard to see now. So they get critique, but actually a lot of players liked it. And that's where the the match section, slight differentiation finish, also gives a bit of an alignment edge. So maybe that colour on the face helps a little bit from an alignment point of view.
So Paul Jennings, I think my handicap is still in the low 20s. Having spent a lot on new clubs, can you still help someone at my level playing tailor-made stealth from driver to sand wedge?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there is no, from a fitting point of view, fitting, and forgive me for saying proper fitting, is about matching the clubs to the player. So it doesn't matter what standard you are. You could be plus 10 or plus 13 like John Rahm's handicap over his last batch of rounds, which is just ridiculous. Or you can be off 28, 30. Ultimately, the clubs have to suit you. So if...
And I think the point to stress with that is that if you do see no difference, we say they're the clubs for you. That's why we charge a fitting fee for the expertise of the guys to come down and use their time and flex the muscle of what we've got here. It's not about just making sure that everybody walks out the front door with a set of golf clubs. It's about making sure that what you're using is, because we're not high street, we really trade on our expertise and our honesty and integrity and obsession about making you better golfers, and know that you're walking away and playing with clubs that are absolutely the best for you.
But that's why we've got you here and Kate here and Stu Robinson here, because it's about finding the best solution. And that actually might not be buying new clubs. It could be saying, you know what, your clubs are set up well enough, there's not enough value in spending, let's say for the sake of argument, £3,000 on a complete set change, or let's say £1,500 on a set of irons. There's got to be enough value in doing it. So you've got to work it. Is it a swing issue that's going to make 90% of the difference? Is it that someone's got an injury that needs rehabilitation first? That's really the key thing from the fitter's point of view. And I guess putting is the one that's most sensitive to it, because it's the one thing we can all improve our technique on. You don't need a big range of motion. You don't need, for a better phrase, sort of physical ability to do it. We're moving an object a few inches either side. Everyone can do it. And so you tend to find it's about a 50-50 split, maybe kind of 60-40, where someone might, players are here because they might want a new putter or a new toy. But a good chunk of the time it's a case of saying, okay, it might be a grip change or a balance change, but there's a tweak in the stroke required. And it's just got to produce the best results. So if something is worse than what you had before, then there's not been a great job done. But as long as it's not hurt any part of the performance, ultimately it's up to the person doing the fitting to not overpromise and underdeliver. Better to go. We'd always try to go the other way around. Always try and play down what improvement you might see, because the last thing you want is someone expecting club and a half of difference extra on top, and you get half a club and then disappointed. As long as there's a tangible gain to have, and it's backed up by data.
And that's the point, right? We back it up by data, and you can see, well, this is what it was before, this is what it is now. It's a 4-yard gain, it's a 10-yard improvement in direction. It's up to you what value that has to you, right?
We can only advise.
Absolutely, and I think that's the point. Come down, have a look.
We should only advise. We're never going to insist someone changes anything.
Absolutely.
It's we present someone with the facts and what we would perceive to be worth doing, not worth doing, or prioritising, and then it's up to the person stood in front of us to go, yeah, I'd like to do that. And the other bit of that is that a really good fitting can be let down by a bad build, and a bad fitting can be, or a good build can be undone by a bad fitting. So the fact that we can take calibration from all our tools here, calibrate them with the build, everything's tied in, that it's such a key thing to make sure that the build and the fitting are,
and I don't think that's stressed enough, right? I mean, imagine someone designing an Aston Martin and then taking it down to a workshop in some back street and then trying to throw it together. It's just not going to work. So the cohesion with the guys in the workshop and the fitters, making sure that it's all on point.
Really key.
So Tom Vaughan goes on to say, or goes on to ask, should I say, as lofts are getting stronger, is it worth fitting the driver first so balls, speeds, clubs could be better gapped? I.e., if a 4-iron is effectively a 2-iron, what's the point of having a hybrid and a 5-wood?
So two parts to it. If you're just looking at the top of the bag, absolutely start with the driver, because that sets your top end, and then you can work back from that and make sure that the gaps and the shot types work. However, if your 4-iron's a loft of a 2-iron, you probably can't hit it very well. So actually it becomes redundant in the bag. So it's really a case of looking at what job are you needing. At the top end of the irons into the woods, that kind of long iron hybrid bit, you're looking at what shot do you need, what shot type, where do you play your golf regularly, what kind of ball flight do you need, and what club's going to suit that. So from, I guess, in the majority of cases, 5-iron down, irons-wise, we'd fit to a ball flight that gives control around the sort of 6-iron, 7-iron kind of end, and you can extrapolate that off. If someone's low spin, you're not going to go beyond a 5-iron for sure. But that also then dictates the likely club up from there. So it's not quite as simple as if you play a 4-iron, you shouldn't play a hybrid or a 5-wood. Yeah. You've just got to play a club and find the club that suits the consistency of the way you swing and strike. For some players who are shallower, that's a fairway wood. Some players who are steeper, it's a driving iron or a hybrid. And a shot that suits where you play and what's required for the course. So unfortunately, you'll never get a straight answer out of me, Tom. There's always a definitely maybe element to it.
but that's the point. It's no one size fits all, is it?
Absolutely.
And that's why we have a good few selections of heads.
Yeah, and you think, golf-wise, it's not like tennis where you play on three or four different surfaces, but the dimensions of the court are the same. We play in so many different conditions and turf conditions and course layouts and styles and designs that, for one player, a low flat run is a great shot because they play down in the links, and for another person who plays at the London club is awful because it won't carry the water. So you've got to tune it into where someone's playing the majority of their golf to make it work.
Well, get yourself on the mat there, big guy, and let's see you give it two turns and a swish.
See if I can click like I did in that video with Kate recently.
Is light on or light off? Let's put some light. Let's put some light on the matter.
Blind me, so I don't know what I'm doing. So this one's just this is the same shot that Stuart uses and not me.
Right. Okay. So you've got your excuse in early.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. Yeah. Love
so
it.
one that, with the ping head, one of the key things, the big criticisms of the G425 was the sound. So it was quite a hard kind of tinny note.
Coke can.
Yeah, a little bit of a kind of a yeah. You're getting reflection off the forehead,
off the noggin,
off the bit that's going backwards. So yeah, the sound is feel. So whilst it can work well, we all like to have a nice experience hitting it. So one of the key things listed was getting that sound dulled down. But Ping have been so good at consistency over the years, they didn't want to change too much of that. So they aren't massive leaps forward with it. Right. But so this is a little higher loft than I would use, but a little low on the face. Yeah. Come out, don't you? Yeah. So low on the face, so it's spun massively. I'm going to pull that tee up a little bit. Right. But what it doesn't have is that kind of harsh sound.
I was going to say that.
Considering how rotten that strike was as well. Yeah, so again, ball speed efficiency 149.
Yeah.
150 for a driver is optimal. So considering that was not a very good contact, whilst the spin's up, it's retained a lot of ball speed. Yeah. So. That's still a little heely. So this is where I'm struggling with the weight a little bit. I'm going to do one more of this. I'm going to just tone the swing down a little so I can find the centre. It's a little more solid contact-wise. Yeah, so it's a little high and loft for me, so the spin's up a little bit, but it's a very stable feel. So swing rate's probably slightly on the heavy side for your spec, but one, it's a much nicer sound to hit with.
I can't believe how different that sounds.
Yeah, it's a real. I'll get the 425 to compare it with as well.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen oil rigs move quicker than that.
So it's a very solid. So and this
that felt amazing.
Yeah, very, very stable. Very stable. And that's something that we're seeing across most of the brands this year, because that's been the major focus of it, of the changes and the upgrades. But what you can see is where Stuart's got it maybe slightly toe side, but it's just turned over. You're a lower spin player than me, so you're 1,000 revs lower spin than my shot, which was a little bit of a fade.
Yeah. I really like the look of that head. That looks great.
Yeah, so for you, it's a very low spin head.
Yeah.
And granted, we'd lofted that down a little bit. But I think the thing across all of these, I'm just going to, whether James can pop it on the screen there, but it's that smash number, third in from the left. You know, if you're 149 there, 151, so almost overly efficiently on that one, then mine 148, 147. Considering the first two are pretty ropey contacts, there's no real drop off in ball speed.
No.
Is that something that Ping have historically always been, that's been one of the big kind of characteristics we've gone to Ping for, is that consistency of performance.
Right.
You know, have always been one of the most forgiving heads out there. So and you can see the consistency of those flight numbers for you. A comment from our animal Matt Hyatt, who has about the combined, our club speeds combined. Had the chance to give it a test in the studio yesterday. Historically for me, Ping has been weak on smash factor, but this year it seems they may compete on distance. He managed to get up to 195 mile/hour ball
Not
speed.
interested in
Please
that.
do not compare with us.
Not interested.
And so not just forgiveness this year. And Tom Vaughan's Matt the Beast, yep, absolutely spot on. And I think that's I would agree with, you know, obviously I would agree with Matt what he says on there, and you can see that from those numbers where Ping have been, we've always used them for consistency, but not necessarily being the hottest heads out there. And this year, yeah, I mean, that's incredibly strong for ball speed, proportionally.
I think as two people hitting shots, I mean, I'm the low spinner, you're the high spinner.
Yeah.
We've got almost same club head speed. It's really interesting to see how different we are, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and I think that's, you know, it's such a great expose of how two people with, you know,
and
nuts and
similar
nuts and
deliveries,
bolts,
you know, 2.5 up, 1.8 up. You know, it's
so
very similar comparison.
Yet, in terms of spin rates, we're like 1,000, 2,000 revs different, right? Yeah. And so, your driver, my driver are not going to be the same. You're an 8.5, 9 degree monster, and I'm like 11, 12 degree. Yeah,
and I might creep up this year as I'm getting less, due to your good help, getting less lateral and a little less that way. I'm not adding quite as much loft. Definitely through the last, I guess, few months, whenever I've been hitting shots more recently, seen my ball flight coming down a little bit. So where I'm in an 8.5 M4, I might well go to a, it sounds like a stupidly small amount, a 9 degree, maybe lofted up a little bit. I don't think I'll get as far as a 10.5, but I'll definitely go a higher loft. I'm just going to hit this, the 425, just so people can hear the difference in
is this, so this is a bigger head?
Same size, this is the 425. So just that contrast in, just so how much of a difference in acoustics that they're making. So
is this is
last year's, the previous model.
Previous model, yeah.
Same brand, same loft, and a much harder sound off the face. So for me, similar spin numbers. So again, Ping with the Max, they're not trying to say they've changed a lot with it, but they have really toned down that sound, and that's a harsh, hard contact.
It is.
Which was really the only criticism.
I saw that comment from Hyatt.
Good man, Matt. Good man. Get your retaliation in first. Matt has just said that Stuart's new irons, the Stealth HD, have just come in. I like it. So it's a totally different. Again, slightly lower launch, possibly for both of us. Same sort of spin for both of us. So the flight hasn't changed much, but the experience of hitting it has massively changed. So I'll pop the Stealth on that.
So let's go Stealth. Dave Hurley, is 4,800 spin too low for a 4-iron?
No, that's possibly too high for a 4-iron. We'd look so where we'd look for in spin windows, 6-iron around 5,500, 5-iron in an ideal world, and it depends a bit on club speed, but we're kind of broadly speaking, 5-iron kind of upper 4,000s, 4-iron around the low 4,000s.
So 101. So it's the full message is 4,800 spin low for a 4-iron and 125 feet high for a 4-iron, carrying 210 at 101 miles an hour of head speed.
So height, yeah, both spin and height are pretty high.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if you've got that much speed, you're going to hit it high. But I'd probably be looking more like about the 90 to 100 feet mark, 100 odd foot mark. So you're still 25 foot higher than really we'd be aiming for. And spin, I'd want about 20% lower than that. So essentially, your 4-irons, you're hitting a 4-iron with a not far off a 6-iron spin. So downwind is going to go. The problem with that is, okay, it'll stop, but downwind is going to go miles, and into wind is going to go nowhere. Right. So yeah, in terms of, it's a little bit excessive on the spin rate.
Right. We've got a big question coming from Jess Collinson. Can we talk about a big topic being hollow body irons?
Absolutely. Your
thoughts on them being consistent or not, catching flyers or short irons causing jumpers? Most of us only get to test 7 irons. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's something that has progressed a lot over the years. Go back not that far, only 2 or 3 models previously, then yes, absolutely. So the reason for hollow body is, one, there's a bit more that you can stiffen the frame. So the back part of the head actually supports the frame of the face, which stiffens it, which means more ball speed. So they've been traditionally distance irons.
You've got incredible amount of knowledge, Simon. I'm blown away by it.
If I say it with enough conviction, and anyone will believe you. But yeah, so with any club in the bag, the stiffer you can make the chassis, the more energy is rebounded, is directed back into the ball. So that's the kind of the basic principle of it. What companies like TaylorMade and PXG have done is infilled the irons. It's not just, part of it's for sound, because if you just had a complete hollow-bodied iron, it'd be like a wok. It would be like a biscuit tin. It'd sound horrific. It would work well, but everyone would hate it. So they filled it with elastomers, polymers, speed foam, or put a coating on the back of the face to just dampen that sound down and make it feel more enjoyable to hit. And they would say softer, but less harsh. What it also does is supports the face a bit more, so they can make the face thinner and get a little bit more speed without it failing. So all the base designs have been around speed and getting a bit of launch by putting weight lower. But you're quite right that in the earlier formats of it, the more you make the face flex, the more variable spin is, because if you hit it slightly higher or lower, the more it flexes, the more the loft changes and the gearing changes. So the problems have been, go back 10 years, a really hot face you'd have 30 yards of dispersion. You'd hit a shot that would still be going up as it went over the pin, which less of an issue at the top end of the set because it's keeping ball speed and probably getting it to where you might feel like you should be hitting it. The problem is down the bottom end where you can strike it well and then you suddenly get one that has no spin and goes. So what is happening, they are far, far, far more predictable than they ever were. So there's a progression of face tech now. So they are using different faces for a 5-iron, a 6-iron, a 7-iron, different designs to mitigate some of that. And so some brands, take Mizuno, the 9 in the pitch, don't have the face tech. TaylorMade, the slot in the bottom of the head isn't there on 8-iron, 9-iron pitch wedge. So what they're doing is they are doing their very best to get as much control down the bottom of the head as possible. And you're far, far, far less likely to get the flies you used to until you go to the real full-on game improvement. So something like a stealth iron, something like if you take the Rogue Max OS Callaway, they're just built for distance. So yeah.
Take it as you see it. Hope that's answered your question there, Jess. That was a big topic.
Sorry if it was like War and Peace.
No, that's very, very good indeed. Right, let's get this stealth underway. I'm excited to hit this.
Hair loft, I've got because I prefer it, I've got the 9-degree lofted up rather than the 10.5.
Got it.
Lofted down. So they've saved another couple of grams in the face this year versus last year's model, and they've stiffened that chassis up a little bit, so saved a bit of weight in the crown and the face, so that's allowed them to move weight around a little bit more, which I think what it's also done in the Plus, which I've got the standard stealth tuner, is it's differentiated the spin a little bit more between the two models.
Right. So we should see a bit of a change in spin profiles.
Should. Yeah, definitely, maybe. Yeah, I'd expect this to be a little lower spin than the Ping Max.
Yeah, gotcha.
So partly loft I mean, because we lofted the 10.5 down, and I've lofted the 9 up, the actual loft's going to be very similar.
Yeah.
Felt fairly solid. So I've launched that. So I've launched that quite high.
Wow.
The spin's similar, but relative to launch angle, it's actually less.
You found some more club speed on that as well, right?
This one, the head's not quite as heavy, so I can actually. The other one, the swing weight was quite strong.
Right. Okay.
So as we get more demo stuff in, we'll get more weight alternatives to play around with.
Gotcha.
But
And
it's the lights warming my back.
And that's another variable people don't appreciate, getting that balance right between too light and too heavy.
Far
right?
out the heel. That's
Yeah, that was quite a long way out the hill, that one. But that balance between too heavy, too light, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about that before. Too light, you won't be able to create enough speed. Too heavy, you won't be able to create enough speed. You get that sweet spot, and it's all systems go, and you maximise.
And for me, heavy also gets behind, and then you like to throw the heel towards the ball. So I mean, that one again, we can see right out the heel, smash factor 146. So you could argue, well, for the ones that I hit horrendously earlier on with the ping, for those swings, the ping retained just a hair more ball speed.
I was going to say that.
Just a hair more ball speed.
I mean, be interested to see what the spin axis on that is. I mean, that was, so still negative.
So I really shut
Impact
through the face at it and shut the face down.
Flick that to driver, but be interesting to see.
What we should be able to do with that, I should be able to switch that around to.
Let's go back to tracer. Be interested to see what the gearing is like and how that changes, on these clubs, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think say with that first one, when you're 15 launch versus 13 and 3,000 versus 2.8 on spin, if you take spin per degree of launch, the stealth was a little bit lower.
Yeah.
100, 150 revs, something like that.
I mean, that looks more lofted. Is this less lofted or more lofted than the last club?
It's the lower base loft, but lofted up.
Gotcha.
So.
Gotcha.
But what we can see from that, and this is where it's very, very interesting, because going back to what you were saying earlier about there is no one size fits all. For you, the ping spun less.
Yeah.
For me, that spun less, and it's just nuances how each player delivers it that makes one head better than the other one.
Yeah.
And that's almost the bit that's been really fascinating in the last few years. Is theory's great, but in practice we all deliver it differently. We all put slightly different kind of amounts of dynamic loft on, add loft, take it off, work the tone of the ball across, open, close, and that all just shifts the geometry of how the mass in the head and the ball interact. Yeah. So it's not a 1 + 1 = 2. No. It's 1 + 1 = 3, 4, 5, 6, or it's just got to work ultimately at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So Matt said the Stealth HD irons are very good at retaining spin while getting extra distance. Although they may not be pretty, they're seriously effective, and one to test for anyone who suffers with a bit of flight and wants forgiveness, for sure. Yeah. And for a very Healy one, under 3,000 spins, very impressive.
Yeah.
That was something we always used to see, massive flares in spin. Massive. And that's something I think this year in particular, with the structural changes, with those weight savings, and that's where we're going to see the biggest improvements, I think. And I don't think there's a weak product this year that I've seen yet.
Yeah, and that's the really big one. When I have my fitting, those heel strikes on the golf course, I've really noticed, hit it out the heel, and you don't see that pop-up sprinkler. Yeah. Or the knuckle ball. There's been way more consistency through heel to toe strike. Yeah.
Massively, yeah.
I'm just going to hit one more with this. I quite like that.
And so with that carbon face, it's a very different feel.
Yeah.
It's warming up. But and this is the irony, is that for in principle a lower, what on face value, the Ping Max is a mid-spin, stable head, not designed to be a cannon. The Stealth was generally a distance. For you, it spins. It's a 3-wood spin. Yeah. For me, it's much lower. So that's where the value of making sure you try them out, because the theory can be great, but if in practice it can be you can lose distance just by picking the wrong head. Yeah.
Should we try the other? We've got the other one.
I got the plus. Yeah,
perfect. Let's try that. And Lockyer, really excited about my driver fitting at the end of the month. Still playing a G25, so hopefully lots of room for improvement.
Yeah. It should be, yeah, it should be. I mean, again, we have seen, I have seen recently some heads of a similar era that we just can't beat. And so the middle of the face is still very good, or can't beat by very much. Yeah, it's one of those where there's always, you can find some improvement.
Yeah.
And it's whether there's enough value in it to make it worth changing. But because they weren't slow heads out the middle. This is the thing, we might be 20 years further on, but they're not allowed to make the middle of the face any hotter. So it's like go back to my M4, I'm not changing it to gain distance out the centre. I will build a new toy this year. It's to improve it off centre. It's just to get away with more. And if I put the effort in and get a bit fitter and stronger, then I can thrash at it harder and hit it all over the face and still keep it in play.
Yeah, and look, we're at the mercy of our bad shots, right? I mean, you hit a snapper or a quick slice, and you're always going to score big numbers.
Doesn't matter how good the club is, we can put a ropey action on and ruin it.
Ant says not sure how much of the middle of the face actually gets used for him. So
yes, definite improvement. Then.
Definite improvement.
Yeah. And actually for that, I honestly think this is a very good year from a driver point of view off centre. I literally have been very impressed with the ping head, the stealths, the Callaway, very impressive off centre. The Strix, I want to hit it. I had a brief hit with that, but with one of the heads because it was that early that they only had the one available to hit. But the ball speed numbers are very good. But I think off centre, the big guys and Cobra look pretty solid for that as well. Again, I had a brief hit with that, but those off centre hits really look like there's a tangible step forward this year.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
So as and forgive me for forgetting who it was, I prefer the smaller shapes. This more compact shape definitely suits my eye a little more.
Oh, that was nice.
It's got a little bit that way, but again, spin versus launch. So again, for me, a much more suitable head.
You can see that as we're going on, we're both trying to hit it harder. Don't know what you're talking about.
Neither of us are competitive animals at all, are we? Okay, let's see if I can. That was hit.
That was nice.
That was hit. Yeah, so you can see it's for me, there's a massive change in spin.
Yeah.
Massive.
1.8. I mean, that's
almost too low. And that was with Matt the animal hitting this one, there were some very low spin numbers out there for him.
Well, I'm not going to like this then. This is not going to be for me, this boy. I might have to shift her up in my part.
Fade one to get some.
Yeah.
Don't change anything for this one. Whether it really does knuckle.
I'll just do.
So 11 launch. Yeah, and there you go. So 13, just under 1,400 revs of spin. So
that's like a wounded mallard falling out the sky.
It's in terms of height wise, you've managed to get it up to 60 feet, whereas mine was a strong flight, but that's still up at 80. Yeah. So that's a classic case of, again, we know in theory that should have been the case, but as you say, club head speed, ball speeds, deliveries, very, very similar. Yeah. I work the head under and add a bit of loft, you don't. That would be, from a flighting point of view, we would go higher loft, but one of the worst things we could put in your hands because you'd be forced to try to help it in the air. Whereas the one that worked for you went into orbit for me. Yeah. So
I'm gonna try and again, it's like trying to make it work right, but that's not the object of the exercise.
Would be very good into the wind, that last one, as long as there's nothing to carry. So, he's got the 160 ball speed out of it. That's disappointing.
But again,
1,500 spin. So I put it into context. Carry-wise, for 3 miles an hour less ball speed has carried 4 yards further. Yeah. But the run out, there's a 14-yard difference because of the higher flight. So low spin's very efficient for total distance. But if you've got a bunker that you need to carry, there's every chance it'll knuckle straight into it. So, and that's where, to go back to, I think it was Dave's question earlier about spins and proportions, you can go too low in spin. You really can. And you can have too low spin and lose carry. You'll gain it on the ground, but you'll lose it through the air.
Matt Hyatt came back with, there was a 1400 spinner in there when we did the testing, would be lovely into the window.
Yeah. But it's the sole use.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we we really need to show that at some point.
I wish we had a camera that showed
he
James.
slides in with
rolling
his 5
past
minutes.
with his cue card. Yeah.
I think
it's a facial expression as well. That
absolutely. So, for two guys swinging it very, very similar in terms of club speed, delivery patterns, it's night and day.
Completely, you wouldn't pick anywhere near the same clubs for us.
Yeah, I mean, and you go down the golf course and your pal, they've been down the range and they've been hitting the same shots and whatever, and they see their club speed or ball speed, and they go, well, look, you must be able to use my driver. Just go out with that today because yours. It just doesn't work.
Well, you could use it,
but it just wouldn't be optimised.
What will happen is you'll start to, we all do it, we'll start to manipulate how we swing to see a flight that we're comfortable with, or to see a shot that we're comfortable with, and actually you can start doing more damage than good by, and you're just sitting from a coaching point of view, the amount of times we see something very heavy, and they then have to flip it through, the posture comes out of it, and you go lighter, and suddenly you can stay in frame and just turn and collect it. And you can ingrain so many awful habits by playing the wrong clubs. And then you keep trying to improve, and you could spend fortunes on lessons, and it's like banging your head against a brick wall. So it can make a huge difference,
Well, look, I think that's been super insightful. Before we've had the 5-minute call. Costa Navarino.
Excited.
A superb event. Just to give you guys and girls a bit of an outline of it. 4 captains, one of them being myself. James and Simon are going to be there. 4 captains, 4 teams of 12 golfers fighting out over 3 days. And 3 of the golf courses in Costa Navarino. If you haven't seen it, it's a spectacular venue. We've got close to 30 people now, so we've got a few spaces left. We'd love you to join us. There's a video on our YouTube channel to give you some insight on that. Exciting few days coming up for that. Yeah,
exciting. It's a great opportunity to get a load of people together who we know well, we enjoy seeing, but also a nice competitive, fun event, but at a great venue. It's something that we've built up the trips. You do your coaching trips, and we do our trips. We did Portugal last year, doing Mauritius at the back end of the year. They're always so good socially. We're on that camera now. And so it'd be nice to get the scale of them up. So we've done between 10 and 20 people generally, but to get the scale of it up, I'm looking forward to the evenings at dinner.
And even if we don't know you and you aren't a current client and friend of Precision Golf, don't feel like you can't enter and come along. We're really trying to.
So we're partnering with Golf Escapes.
Yes,
they're partnering up with them for this event. It's something where we're excited to see some of their guys and girls come over and just be a really great, fun, inclusive, competitive, no doubt banter-filled event.
And the beauty with it is what we're doing is, so we're going to make it so the first round 6 of the team scores count, then the next day 8 of the team scores count, then everyone's team scores count. There's activities in the evening, so there's going to be a putt out, there's going to be a short game chip off, there's going to be a par 3 comp in the evenings around having a beer and with the sun setting. So there's going to be some really
and they
good,
all feed into the competition
and they all feed into the competition as well. So it's going to be a great time. There's going to be some clinics hosted by the 4 pros as well. To enter, email myself, Stuart at precisiongolf.co.uk, or you can reach us on any messaging on YouTube, Instagram. Just reach out and we'll be sure to get back to you and get you involved.
Back end of April, 25th to 28th of April.
Absolutely. We're off to a little recce trip in February just to make sure everything is in place before we get there. But it's going to be a great time.
Great fun. Really looking forward to that. That's going to be a stunning event.
Super fun. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed the last hour or so of us.
Thank you for all the interaction. Really appreciate all the comments and the questions. It's what makes these Fridays. It's great fun. So thank you. And proves it's live as well.
Yeah, exactly. Check out all of the content that's on our YouTube channel. And of course, if you've enjoyed today, make sure you like, subscribe and share with your friends. Simon, thanks very much.
Great fun as always.
And we'll all look forward to seeing you sometime soon.